Greetings to the Old Testament interpretation class here at Southeastern University. This is your instructor, Dr. Larry Asplund, coming to you in the midst of a very interesting semester, isn't it? My goodness sakes, who could have predicted that we would end up needing to stay focused, keep our priorities, carefully managed, our time carefully managed in the midst of a great Bible class. But here we are. I wanted to stop by this evening and welcome you to week 4. And give you just a sense of where we are. It's an 8-week intensive, which means after 4 weeks, we're halfway through. So I want to try to anticipate the coming week, but then further into the class as well. The week 4 theme is Old Testament narrative. That is the historical books in the Old Testament. So our learning objectives for week 4 are, first of all, some very specifically defined objectives for an introduction to Old Testament narratives, to the description of Old Testament narrative, both as literature and theology. Then, of course, an introduction to the actual historical books in the Old Testament. And then a consideration of the relevance, the significance of Old Testament narrative today. Ultimately, as you know, this class is about interpretation, which implies then application. So in terms of our week 4 resources, we're going to read Unit 3 in the textbook by Walton Hill, Old Testament Today, which is, as is true of other units, has an introduction, 4 chapters. Also, on our course site, you have a list of key terms and key verses. You'll want to pay attention to those. And then there are a couple of very good resources. There is a video from Sandra Richter called What Was Israel's Government Like? And then there's another video from the Bible Project called Plot in Biblical Narrative. So those are assigned resources for you this week. And then there are also some supplemental resources, all videos, also available for you, links to them. There is another video from Sandra Richter called The Divided Kingdom, and then some Bible Project videos, one called Character in Biblical Narrative, then Setting in Biblical Narrative, and finally Design Patterns in Biblical Narrative. All very short, but extremely well done videos, as you know, and although they're not required, I think you will enjoy them. A couple of discussions in week 4. The first one pertains to Old Testament narrative in general, and here is our discussion prompt. Why is the understanding of the historical context for Old Testament narrative important? And, of course, use specific examples to show what benefit and understanding of history lends to reading and understanding the biblical text. One of the uniquenesses in terms of world religions of both Judaism and Christianity is they're history-based religions. They're based on actual historical events. And, you get the good, the bad, and the ugly with lessons to be learned along the way. And so being able to know how to read those historical books, the narrative books in the Old Testament is very, very important. And then the second discussion is on the theological significance of the temple, and our discussion prompt is, what is the theological significance of the temple? How does the role of the temple play into the overall narrative of Scripture? There are a vast number of views when it comes to the temple in Jerusalem in eschatology, which is not something we will be discussing, but there's no question that the Old Testament has a very important role for the temple, so that will be our second discussion. Then we have 2 quizzes again in week 4. Quiz 3.1 is on chapters 1 and 2 and the learning resources that are assigned. Another very short objective quiz, and then the second quiz is on chapters 3 and 4 along with learning resources, the same kind of a way. So you're very familiar with how those work, and they will come up again, kind of give you a chance to, take a look at the ideas that you were able to glean along the way. I wanted to jump ahead to week 7 and kind of look at this idea of a research topic and presentation. Please understand that you are not going to have a research paper or a research project due in this class. However, it does present to you, it introduces to you the idea of research in the Old Testament, so it has value for that reason. So there are several pieces of it that will come up in week 7. One is a discussion forum will be used to indicate your research topic selection. So there is a long list of biblical figures, and you will indicate your choice for one to take a deeper look at. When you get there, you will discover that it's kind of first come, first serve, although it's a very long list. And so you are going to be asked to choose a figure that no one else has chosen yet. And then the graded pieces are in week 7, the Old Testament Interpretation Research Project, which is a worksheet. So you will download, and it's available now, you will download the research worksheet and fill it out and submit it. So there'll be a submission link for you. And that'll involve a bit of work, of course. And then that's, of course, due in week 7, worth 15% of your final grade. And then finally, at the end of it all, there is another discussion forum that we will use for you to present your Old Testament interpretation research presentation, a short video that basically summarizes, and there's an outline to be followed when you get there that summarizes your research topic. And it will be worth 5%. It'll be in a discussion forum, so you'll have an opportunity to share with the other members of the class and interact with one another. So that's coming up in week 7. Please don't remember, although it gets your toe into, Old Testament research. It's not a research paper. It's not a research project, but it is nevertheless a significant part of our class. So Old Testament history, Old Testament narrative is very, very important to our understanding of the flow of God's revelation in the Old Testament, of course, setting the stage for the New Testament. So it's a very great opportunity for us coming up this coming week to be able to be introduced, maybe reintroduced for us to those books and consider the role they play in Old Testament interpretation. Once again, I'm here to serve you. I'm very aware that our lives are being significantly disrupted. Let's remember to pray for each other. Let's remember to support and encourage each other. We have students who have lost their jobs. Of course, we do have older married students whose kids are now home from school. It's all the stuff that all of us are experiencing together. There are students who lived on campus that no longer, at least they've been given the choice to move off of campus. Southeastern University has taken more of a kind of a softer approach, at least for the time being, when it comes to all of that. And so let's continue to pray for President Engel, of course, as well as our other administrators, faculty, and staff at Southeastern University, and pray for each other this coming week. So remember once again that I'm here for you, committed to you. I'm ready to serve you in any way that I can this coming week. God bless you, everybody. Just have a wonderful week.